world is much more complex and enigmatic than we realize. Our lifetime is not long enough to learn everything because new facts and discoveries are made every day. Every new fact, no matter how small, that we discover about the present or past expands our knowledge of both. The journey is the most enjoyable part of learning, right? On that note, here are some facts we cannot believe we didn't know before. In 1989, an asteroid nearly hit Earth. Near-miss day is observed annually on March 23, 1989, and for good reason. On that particular day, an asteroid that measured half a mile across narrowly missed the Earth by 400,000 kilometers. Although it may not seem close, Earth had been in the same spot just 6 hours ago. We didn't learn the close encounter until 9 days later. The closest call since then was in January 1991, when an asteroid approximately 30 feet wide passed within 106,000 miles of Earth. Certainly, we can say we were lucky that day. Two very powerful nuclear bombs accidentally fell on North Carolina. North Carolina barely avoided tragedy on January 24, 1961. A B-52 that was carrying two powerful Mark 39 nuclear bombs crashed in midair. The two bombs came to rest not far from Goldsboro. The bombs were 200 to 300 times more potent than those that destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, so if they had exploded, North Carolina would have been a tragic memory. The fusing process on both bombs was started by the force of the aircraft's mid-air collision. The safe switch was the only thing that stopped the first one from exploding when its nose was discovered 2 feet under the ground. The second one hit the ground hard and was armed to detonate, but the impact with which crashed prevented the explosion. While the first bomb was fully retrieved, one of the second bomb's nuclear cores went deep into the Earth. It was left there, and the area around it is actively farmed. When a predator is pursuing them, the marsupials sacrifice their young. In the animal kingdom, there are numerous instances of altruism. Animals may make the ultimate sacrifice for the benefit of the herd. Animal mothers are also capable of ferociously protecting their young. However, the contrary may be true when it comes to marsupials, the pouch-bearing residents of Australia. Marsupials like kangaroos, wallabies, and even the ever-smiling quokka may allow the joey to slip out of the pouch if they are being pursued by a predator. By making a scene, the abandoned joey unintentionally diverts the predator. The mother is still alive to give birth to another child, but the prey food is the helpless joey. The only Japanese passenger on the Titanic was humiliated by his country for surviving. An employee of the Japanese Transportation Ministry named Masabumi Hosono visited Russia and then England to research railroad operations. Before the tragedy, he boarded the Titanic in Southampton, popularly known as the Ship of Dreams. Hosono was on the deck of the Titanic when it sank, searching for an exit with the other passengers. The authorities suddenly stated that there was room for 2 more passengers in one of the lifeboats. Hosono was the next to dive in. When he first returned to Japan, he was initially celebrated as a survivor and elevated to a little celebrity. Later, he was accused of being a stowaway, first by Titanic survivor and first-class passenger Archibald Gracie, and then by citizens of his own country. Hosono lost his job, and while he was eventually hired back, his career never really revived. The shame persisted until his death in 1939 and even after. Even Dubai imports sand. It's sandy in Dubai. Outside the sparkling city in the United Arab Emirates, there are many high sand dunes that are popular with tourists. However, because desert sand is too smooth, Dubai cannot use it for construction. Sand is indeed imported. The need for sand has resulted in unlawful mining and the emergence of sand mafias in numerous nations. Sand, gravel, and stone were imported into Dubai for a total of $456 million in 2014. Franklin D. Roosevelt ordered a hidden anti-gay investigation in the Navy. Franklin D. Roosevelt considered a purifying program when he was the Assistant Secretary of the Navy and hoped to boost his political career. He planned to get rid of any LGBTQ people or inverts as non-heterosexual people were then known from the Newport Navy. He went with a request to launch an undercover probe in the U.S. Navy to Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer. Roosevelt refused, yet he still did it. To get close to military men and cadets who were LGBT or otherwise effeminate, undercover agents entered the Navy. They were urged to have sex with these males in order to be apprehended and charged with vice, homosexuality, and depravity, homosexual acts. The undercover operatives were legally protected, but the men they entrapped were stripped of rank and convicted. This has gone down in history as the Newport sex scandal of 1919. The Nazis awarded Henry Ford with their highest civilian honor. When Henry Ford became 75 years old in 1938, he was given an honor that most people today would consider questionable. The highest distinction that Nazi Germany could bestow upon a foreigner was the Grand Cross of the Supreme Order of the German Eagle, which was his gift. Ford became the first American to receive the 1937 Adolf Hitler Prize. Hitler was reported to have had a strong admiration for Ford. Ford was anti-Semitic, to be honest, but he was also anti-war and declined to travel to Germany to accept the award. Thus, Dearborn, Michigan, had to receive the accolade. In reality, baby formula has been around for more than 150 years. Although baby formula, a manufactured substitute for breast milk, is a relatively recent development, it was actually created in the 1800s. The first supplements for a mother's milk were other women known as wet nurses, who filled in to feed babies for wealthy mothers or those who were unable to breastfeed. Brunettes rather than blonde or red-headed women were preferred as wet nurses because their milk was thought to be more nutritious. Instead, the focus shifted to developing breast milk substitutes in the 1800s. The first alternative examined was fresh, warm, or diluted milk from animals like cows, goats, horses, and donkeys. Infants were fed with a spoon or a cow's horn covered in cloth, paper, or a sponge to act as a nipple, until baby bottles and rubber nipples were created. However, doctors found that babies who were given cow's milk had a higher mortality rate and digestive issues. Johann Franz Simon, a German scientist, examined both in 1838 and discovered that cow's milk contained more carbs and less protein than human milk. The first commercial infant food was a powder made of wheat and malt flours and potassium bicarbonate in 1860 by German scientist Justus von Liebig, which was intended to be combined with warmed cow's milk. Nestle's infant food, a product produced in the U.S. in the 1870s and consisting of malt, cow's milk, sugar, and wheat flour diluted with water. In the decades that followed, other businesses produced their own formulas with the ingredients or the proportion of ingredients, changing in response to research from physicians and scientists regarding the best nourishment for infants. Pasteurization to kill microorganisms, and evaporation were additional advancements to make milk more digestible. Early in the 20th century, producers made an effort to make infant formula more resembling human milk by adding things like maltose, dextrin, calcium, phosphorus, cod liver oil, and other animal and plant lipids. Similac was one of these products, so named because its purpose was to be similar to lactating. Soy and iron were later additions. In the 1960s, when people believed formula to be more nutrient-rich and businesses offered free formula to new mothers in hospitals, the proportion of women who exclusively breastfed hit a low. The Infant Formula Act of 1980 in the U.S. established requirements for manufacture, testing, and ingredient use. Companies have created special infant formulae in more recent years for infants who are premature, lactose intolerant, or have other medical concerns. If you like this type of content, please feel free to like and subscribe to this channel for more amazing videos. Thanks for watching. See you next time.